What's going on, buddy? My name is Eason, and welcome back to another video. And today, guys, we're getting into the internal structure of cities. Yeah, so please subscribe, guys, before we get started. It really does help me out. It's free. This guy says to subscribe, and they are right. I mean, everyone who tells you to subscribe is always right. So do it. It's very helpful. Now let's get started with the video with city models. Before we get into a bunch of city models that explain the internal structure of cities, we gotta go through some background information. So over time, different models have been created to explain the internal structure of cities, to explain what happens in the city, the outskirts of cities, interactions, transportation, all of that fun stuff. Now, these models can vary across the world due to history and situation. So history can vary because some places got colonialized, whatever the heck you want to say. Some places did the colonizing, and then the situation varies from place to place. Some areas can be poor, some areas can be wealthy. Models change over time due to advancements, development, and other changes to the way of life. So this means cities are not the same as they were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. They certainly weren't the same when they were 100 years ago. I mean, people didn't have that much cars 100 years ago. They were really big customer durables that were for the wealthy. So we're going to see the changes in these models over time and what accounts for these changes and why some models aren't used as much anymore because of these things. We're going to get started with the centric zone model. So its origin was the 1920s, and it was kind of based off the city of Chicago, Illinois in America. And off the bat, it looks like the Von Tuna model, but I swear it isn't. So we got circles, and it's pretty easy to understand. So this big thing in the middle, this like dot, the star of the city is the central business district. It's the highlight of our city, and that's going to be in the middle of this model. Then we have the zone of transition. So we see industry, we'll see other things like that outside of the city, businesses, factories, and other things like that. I guess I can't go too much in depth with that because it's not that specific. Then we have the zone of working class. So we see some residential for the working class. We see some maybe family-owned businesses and stuff like that. We'll maybe see a lot of those in the central business districts in the market as well, but we definitely see that here in the zone of working class. We see the zone of better residents. So we see the wealthy start to go out of the city. Something about this model and a bunch of other North American models is that the wealthy live farther away from the city. So that's something to know. Now, if you go to Europe or any other country outside of North America, you're pretty much going to see the opposite. The wealthy live in the city so they can afford that high cost of living. And then the poorer people are going to live outside the city. Now, before we get into the pros and cons, there's one more zone. It's the commuter zone. So we're going to see transportation, stuff like railroads and stuff. We didn't have any cars back then, so it's not taken into account in this model. We also see the wealthiest people. They're living farther away from that central business district, the star of the city. So let's get into those pros and cons. So a first pro is pretty easy to understand. It's a circle. Each layer has something different with different people. And it explains some modern-day American and Canadian cities. Those make up a bunch of cities in the world. So it's good to know some explanations for those cities and why they are like the way they are. However, it's outdated. We have cars now, other methods of transportation. So people can travel here and from the city pretty quickly. They don't even have to live in the city anymore. They can live out in the suburbs. It can also only be applied to North America. We can't go to Europe or any other country and be like, look, this is why this city's like this. No, we can't do that. We have to think of some other model, and more time has to be put into that. And we also have a global economy. We don't really have a single market anymore. We see more interaction between each other. We see globalization. We see interdependence of economies and stuff like that. And also gentrification. I hope I said that right. We see this. So people are renewing the cities, the central business district, and we're going to see maybe the wealthy come back into the cities sometimes, and that's going to drive out some of those poor residents or even make the cost of living higher, and that's some pretty big effects right there. Now let's get into the next one, the Hoyt Sector model. Its origin was 1939, and we can kind of see this was kind of close to that concentric zone model. This model was trying to be an updated and better version of that model, and its influence was also Chicago, Illinois. The CBD and other slices of the city are connected through transportation routes. So that's pretty cool to know. And here we see the CBD in the middle. It's still the star of the city. However, each part is kind of like a slice of pie. The factories and industry kind of take up 2 slices. The high-class residential area take up 1 slice, and they continue to go out even past the middle-class residential. As this is a North American model, the wealthy try to live as far from the city as possible. The low-class residential make up a big slice because they're near the CBD. And then the middle-class residential make up a good slice. However, you know, they're the middle class. They work in the city, they work out in the suburbs, and stuff like that. As we can see here as well. Now, the Hoyt Sector model. How is the Hoyt Sector model outdated today? Okay, it's outdated because we still have more transportation, alright? We also see edge cities. We also see other things that we don't really have today. Cities also change over time. Businesses move, factories move. We also see deindustrialization. Doesn't really take that into account, I guess. So if one area of the city depopulates, people are going to move to another area of the city. That's not going to be taken into account of this model. Now let's get into the multiple nuclei model. Its origin was 1945, and something to know is that transportation has been advanced, and there is now multiple central business districts and markets. So we still see, a central business district. However, it's not the star of the city anymore. It's not in the middle. Sorry, and it's not like a circle anymore. It kind of looks like, to me, it looks like one of those guns you put on like tanks and stuff. That's what it looks like to me. But it also extends over to light manufacturing, low-class residential, and medium-class residential. It's kind of all over the place here. We do see that the high-class residential, the wealthy, are really far from that central business district. And then the suburbs are definitely far from the central business district. Heavy manufacturing, those big manufacturing areas are going to be farther from the central business district. They take up more room, and they need that cheaper land to build these factories. However, light manufacturing is going to be closer to the central business district. One, to sell it, and two, because they don't need as much land, so they can buy that more expensive land because they don't need as much of it. And we're going to see that low class kind of near the central business district. Even though cost is higher to live there, they're going there for the jobs. And medium class are going to be farther away because they may have a job. However, they may have transportation to get to those cities. That's something this model takes into account that the last two didn't really have. So that's very cool to know. Now, different nuclei of the model may have different nodes. So right here, we could see education, university. So people move there. For that, we could see areas prosper because of the university. Maybe here in heavy manufacturing, we could see things like steel or other factories grow here. That maybe other factories will grow in this area as well. We can also see the wealthy move to a certain area outside because maybe it just looks nice. It's tropical, the beach. In the Hamptons up in New England, people move there. The wealthy get there outside of New York and stuff because it's, it's beachy, and stuff like that. So that's an example of a node for different areas of the nuclei. And this model also works best with growing cities, and it's going to update with changes of the city. So it's not going to look like this forever. It's not going to look like this for every single city. However, it's going to look like this for North American cities because it is a North American model. However, it will work best with growing cities, and it will update over time. So the central business district may move, it may shrink, it may expand. The wealthy may go farther away and stuff like that. There may be more heavy manufacturing. They may get closer or farther away as well. Now let's get into the Galactic City model, my personal favorite model, because I love astronomy and stuff like that. Its origin was also 1945, and transportation has been advanced, and there is now multiple CBDs and markets. So we still have a main CBD. However, we're going to see business all over and around the main CBD and markets around the CBD because of suburbanization. So what surrounds this main central business district? Well, it could be suburban housing. It could also be recreation, like movie theaters. It could be services like hospitals or just office buildings, more businesses and stuff like that. We could also see retail like supermarkets and malls. We could see transportation like airports or edge cities as well. So all of these can surround the galactic model. Now, what they also connect to this central business district. Now, what connects to all these and also surrounds them? Well, it's going to be transportation as well. We can see interstates, highways, all of that. They're going to be on the outskirts. This is called the Beltway of the Galactic City model. It really resembles a galaxy. That's very, very cool. Now let's get into the bid-rent theory. We kind of went through this theory in Unit 5, the agriculture unit, when we went over location of farms and the market. So the farther you are from the market, land costs will decrease. However, it's going to decrease at a certain rate for what you're using it for. So retail is going to decrease significantly the farther you are from the market. Residential, it's going to kind of decrease at a more linear level. So the farther you get, of course, it's going to decrease, but not as much as maybe manufacturing, where it's kind of in between the middle. However, the farther you are, the cheaper it's going to cost, the more consequence you're going to have on land use. So you maybe use more land use up. You may take away animal habitats and stuff like that. So that's something to know as well. The farther you are, the less cheaper the land is. However, the more consequence of land use that there's going to be. Bid rent theory, it's pretty easy. Now let's get into areas around the world, starting with a Latin American model. So this model represents the structure of Latin American cities from Spanish influence and law. So as we can see here, we have the market, the CBD in the middle. However, we see here, I'm going to turn on this laser pointer. We see here we kind of have a spine. This is a big transportation route. We see things like residential areas, and we see a mall, more business out here at the end of the spine. And this spine is the transportation. So we see residential and maybe family businesses, smaller, stuff like that on this spine out these transportation routes and stuff. Cool things. Maybe out here we see industrialization and other factories. Very cool to know. And then the middle class are going to be kind of near this mall at the edge of the spine. The wealthy are going to live closer to the CBD. That's what this blue is, because we're not in North America anymore. And then squatter settlements are going to be in this blue area, kind of all around here. So yeah, that's the Latin American model. Pretty cool. Represents colonization from Spanish, and it's different from the North American models. Now we're getting to Southeast Asia. Let's turn back on that laser pointer. So there's no central business district here. The port is considered the most important part of the city. This is the port right here. Hello, the port zone. Europeans and merchants live in this western part of the city. However, aliens and non-citizens live in this eastern part of the city. AC stands for alien commute or something like that. And then the citizens are going to live up north of suburbs, squatter settlements, market gardening, and industrial estates and stuff like that. And then, of course, the wealthy, the Europeans, are going to live closer. The government's going to live closer to regulate the ports, regulate those imports and exports. Europe did this so they can make money, maximize those profits. So the government's going to be closer to the port. The high-class residents are going to live closer to the port as well, because it's kind of the most important part of the city. It's the star. And yeah, Southeast Asia. Now we got Africa, primarily Sub-Saharan Africa. So what we may see this with some northern African cities. So this reflects colonialism with multiple CBDs. As we can see here, we have the traditional CBD, the market zone, and the colonial CBD. It also has ethnic neighborhoods because policies are implemented to create boundaries and stuff for ethnic neighborhoods. And we're also see infrastructure closer to the CBD, primarily the colonial CBD. We see that this is going to be one of the main CBDs because when Europe came here, it was kind of like, the cool thing to buy here. People are buying here, they're putting infrastructure here, so you're going to want to be on the colonial CBD to maximize your profits, and you're going to see all the popular and well businesses in this colonial CBD as well. But that doesn't get rid of the traditional and market zones as well. And then we have finally the Europe model. This is a little complicated. However, in the main area, the core up here is going to be historic areas because Europe's a pretty historical area. The wealthy are going to be living in these core historic buildings. And then skyscrapers, modernization are going to be in the main going to be outside this main historic area. We're also going to see the lower white collar employees, the ones that are not making as much. They're going to live outside in these skyscrapers in modern areas as well. We're going to see natural attraction forests on the outside of this as well. Heavy industry closer to this working class, and then the skyscrapers, modernization, stuff like that. And then we're going to see social housing is kind of on the edge of all of these as well, with industry in your zones of transitions, your migration area, and your heavy industry, which is going to be kind of right outside your working class. So yeah, that's pretty much Europe for you. And that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment with your criticism. I love criticism. Like, subscribe. Join my Discord server. Links in the description down below. I got other AP Human Unit 6 videos as well above the video. Thank you so much for watching. I got nothing else for you on this video, so adios.